Andrew, can you just tell us a little bit about the organisation, the Africa Governance Initiative?
Yeah, so we're a UK charity that works with African governments to help their leaders bridge the gap between vision and implementation. So when we've talked to presidents across Africa, one of the things they tell us is they know what they want to achieve. They're really clear about where they want to take their country. They've got the leadership ability to do it, but they find that often when they put their foot on the gas, nothing happens. So we help them build the kind of machinery of government to deliver, to get things done.
Okay, yeah, indeed. Yesterday I was at the session that was organised by the Governance Initiative, and one of the points that Tony Blair raised, indeed, was that there's been a sort of sea change in Africa, and that there's a new generation of leaders who know what they want, and indeed one of the challenges is the challenge of capacity. Could you give us an idea, what does it mean now to come behind African leadership, to build the capacity to deliver?
Yeah, I think I'd make 3 points here. I think, firstly, this issue of prioritisation. I think when say a poverty reduction strategy is negotiated between a number of donors and the government, it'll often have 100, 150 things that are called priorities. And I think we all know that if you've got 150 priorities, it's really hard to get things done. So one of the disciplines for African governments is to be really, really clear about the 3 or 4 things they want to achieve. And then the discipline for the donor partners is to genuinely get behind those. What getting behind them means is using country systems. I think it's been a big theme of the Busan conference from President Kagame and Secretary Clinton, this thing of genuinely backing country systems. And then the third point is accepting that all these decisions are political. Capacity building is political. And for me that means not using lack of political will as an excuse for things not happening, but accepting that all these decisions are political and that's fine, and any advice that doesn't engage with the politics is flawed.
Now, that message, and it's a very clear message, is that something that you communicate to the donor community as well, or primarily it's an engagement you have with African leaders?
It's a message we're given by African leaders. I mean, our teams work within the governments of Rwanda, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Tony Blair himself has close working relationships with their presidents, and it's what they're telling us. And we've come to this Busan event and had our event in order to get those messages out to a wider community and kind of change this relationship, which I think is one of the other big things of Busan, moving from this donor-recipient relationship to a genuine partnership relationship. So we're really just reflecting what we're told.
Right. Can you just give us some examples of the practical work you're doing? You've mentioned working in Rwanda and Sierra Leone, and I guess these are countries that are post-crisis. Is that generally the case, that you're working in countries that are either in situations of fragility or reconstruction?
I think these issues are more acute in those contexts, although even Rwanda, I think, is increasingly looks less and less like a post-conflict country. If you go to Kigali, it certainly doesn't have that feel. But I think a lot of these challenges of just getting things done in government actually apply to governments everywhere. I used to work in the Prime Minister's Strategy Unit in the UK, and Tony talks about this as well. It's not always easy just to make things happen. You know, we did the work on waiting times in the UK system or whatever. I think these are general challenges of government. I mean, in terms of examples, there's a number of reforms we've supported through our work. Firstly, these are reforms of the governments we work with. AGI helps, but they're not our reforms, and I think that's a really important thing to always remember as an outside actor. But to take a couple of examples, we've worked supporting the government of Sierra Leone on their free healthcare initiative. A brilliant idea. They've been knocking around for a few years. There've been resources on the table, but with a really strong political will from President Karoma and our kind of help with some of the machinery, it's really taken off and had a huge impact on maternal mortality and the health of newborn children. The other example, I think it's really great that President Kagame spoke at the opening ceremony today, because his government is really taking a lead on some of this capacity work. He's basically taken taken to the donors and said, these are my 4 priorities, my 4 economic priorities: investment, electricity, mining, agricultural productivity. This is what capacity I need to get those done. Will you get behind it? And to be fair to the development community, particularly the World Bank, they really have backed that. And I think with that political will behind it and that clear sense of prioritisation, that reform programme's got a really strong chance of succeeding.
Right, thank you, Andrew. You've mentioned, of course, coming here with some messages to communicate to Busan, and you've also mentioned that some of the leaders that you're working with are here. We have a particular interest in capacity development. What do you think are some of the sort of take-home messages that you'd like to see reflected in the Busan outcome statement?
I don't know about the outcome statement, because sometimes some of these documents can be heavily negotiated and end up a bit turgid, but the kind of messages I'm taking from the event are, firstly, a sense of optimism about the progress that African governments and African leaders are making, and I think that context is really important for capacity building. If you're helping leaders with a clear agenda to develop the capacity to achieve specific things, you're already moving in the right direction. I think capacity building in a vacuum is detached from the political will, detached from implementation, is really difficult. So that sense of optimism is really important. And then, for me, the message I'd like to get out to particularly specialists in the capacity building realm is to start thinking of capacity as wider than just individual skills. One of the things I learned from my time in Rwanda is if you just focus on skills and maybe sending people on training courses, you don't necessarily build a system that can get things done for sustainability in the long term. So thinking about things, capacity in a holistic way, so you think about whole institutions, skills, systems and structures, I think that's another message I'd like to try and get out there.